We are Squawking Dead, a podcast polarizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cammie, and I'm joined by Cosmom Zero and I, Rachel Burt, and Karina Davey, whom you could find.
It's not even dark.
On Instagram at Karina_D. That's CARINAE_D. You can check out her art on Etsy. And you could just check out her art on Instagram if you just like looking at things. Yeah. But you could take some of them home if you like.
I would like that if you would take art home. I appreciate that a lot.
It's our new sign. Take art home.
Yeah. Trade me for money, preferably. Don't just take it.
Yeah.
Or
trade
caps.
Trade it for money.
She takes caps.
I'll take caps. Yeah, I take caps.
She says through gritted teeth, don't give me caps. Caps are worthless pre-apocalypse.
I mean, I'm not against a trade at a convention. I've done that before. I've traded art for t-shirts and things like that. So
yeah.
How much would a print be in caps?
I don't know. Do they have an equal trade? Like, is a cap worth $1?
I would probably say so, right? Because Ma June offers anybody 1,000 caps to take out the ghoul.
Yeah, $1,000
in this episode.
Yeah.
Which we're talking
spoilers.
Which is the second episode of Amazon Prime's Fallout, which is called The Target. Okie dokie.
Oh, I didn't even look at the title. I suck at this.
That's why I said it too.
I know.
Let's make that very clear, because when you're looking at the episode title and description on Amazon Prime, the description is very slim, which I personally like. It doesn't give anything away.
Yeah.
Even though the whole thing dropped. A, no spoilers, but B, who cares? You're going to binge it anyway. Except for us, because we have to take our time. Most of us. Because, you know, we have to have that fresh brain for every episode, essentially, so we can judge each one as it comes. Listen, Karina aside, who is our resident library on all things Fallout in the games, which is fine. It pays to have you know everything in advance, because then you can keep going back and forth and check yourself in terms of the games. I thought
about you so many times when I was watching this episode because of all the golden nuggets you dropped in our lap during our last recording. My brain knew so many more things watching this episode now.
Yes, I feel like having that background knowledge with the games is really helpful, especially for this episode, because there's so much. I was smiling ear to ear watching it because it's so good. Like, this episode is like amazing. It has so many great things for people who are just getting into the series and people who are familiar with the games and who really like that kind of stuff. I made lots of notes about things I want to talk about.
Yeah, even on that note, having not really played the games at all, I thought it was an enjoyable episode, and I like having that brain a little bit because I like to judge things on their merit. And merit was talked about in this episode. Yes. Meritocracy. Yeah. Interesting enough. I will say I did fall asleep at the end. My first watch. Okay. Just because it was late at night. It was actually, so here's the thing. I watched it right after we recorded our last episode. So it was already pretty late. I was waiting for the recordings to upload so I could do something with it. Fell asleep and I'm like, oh, it's not happening. So I guess I'll post it tomorrow. And so I really didn't miss very much at all, actually. So it was just like a light kind of, and then back up again. So I must have a
pretty big moment at the end there.
Yeah.
Of course I rewatched it.
Okay, good. But still, thank goodness.
I took extensive notes because today is Passover. So I have the day off. We're recording at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, April 23rd, I think it is. Yeah. And according to my watch, which is it's just hair anyway, but it's a robot arm. So I know the time already.
It's in your brain. Hair. It's in your processor up there. Like,
exactly. Synthetic follicles. Rachel, what's your impressions of this episode?
Second episodes might not always be like the most interesting in a series, but I feel like this one did a really good job of moving the story forward, which I'm always a fan of. We get to know a little bit more about some of our characters. I feel like I know Maximus a little bit better right now. Seeing his inaction, I'll call it.
It was a choice. It was a deliberate choice.
It was definitely a choice.
Right. When he decides to act and when he decides
doesn't
not to
act. Exactly.
What is it for?
Well, I think he saw something terrible in this knight. He's like, you don't deserve to be a knight. You're supposed to stand for something and you don't. You suck at what you're supposed to represent. I could do a better job. So he tries to.
Those were so hard.
I was very surprised to see all of these characters come together so soon.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool thing. Like it didn't take the whole season for them to meet each other. They're all right there, right in the beginning. So
that was really interesting.
They did that because they wanted to avoid a Sharon situation where they're like, oh, are these guys in different timelines and they'll never meet?
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not specifically for Charity, but just to give people an idea that everybody's looking for the same guy. Basically. Well, most everybody. Oddly enough, the one who wasn't looking for Wilzig, who is played by Michael Emerson, whom everybody knows from Lost, but sometimes from
or something else.
As Finch from Person of Interest. And then she's the one who ends up taking him to where he's supposed to go. Partially.
Maybe.
Somewhat.
Part of him.
I can't wait to see how that turns out.
I agree with Rachel. It pulls the story forward enough that you stay interested and you want to find out, what's this strand? Let's pull on that. I want to see more. The fact that they're all three of our main characters are together in the same episode, having this massive confrontation is kind of epic and amazing. It doesn't bait you with that. So you kind of get to see how they are with each other, how they interact, that kind of thing. And the fact that they go to Philly, which Philly.
Right.
I love that.
Made me laugh.
I have a little thing to say about that. So that's like a game thing from New Vegas specifically. So you think about how a lot of these people are just seeing this world left over from what was bombed. They don't have any background knowledge on it. You see it with the Wastelander that Lucy encounters, where he's kind of not that smart. He's very uneducated. He doesn't know how a water filter is supposed to work. Like he thinks he can.
Putting it very kindly.
I'm trying to be kind about it. Like it's not his fault.
So
all right?
Sweet.
You know, there's no formal education system in this world. So, you know, how is he supposed to know you're supposed to put water in a water filter? Why not sand? Who knows?
You know what? I think that's right.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's not his fault. But you think about these people trying to glean what they can from the world that's sort of passed away. And if you don't know that Philly means Philadelphia and you've never seen the word Philadelphia, why wouldn't it be just Philly, Philly? In New Vegas, there's a group of people or a faction called Caesar's Legion, except they don't call themselves Caesar's Legion. It's Kaiser's Legion because they don't know how to say Caesar. So they just find these old Roman soldier costumes in Vegas and they just put them on, and they think that, I mean, they're not incorrect in thinking that Caesar was a leader of these people. They just, the way they found out about it is totally different and wrong.
Well, it's ironic too, because the word Kaiser comes from the word Caesar anyways. So
that's
it's
interesting.
Not actually wrong.
Right. I didn't know that. So
Tsar, Caesar, Kaiser, they're all roots of the same word. Yeah. So they raided a Paramount Studios Hollywood lot of the 50s and took all these Roman costumes essentially.
You know what? It's probably from Caesar's Palace.
Oh, Caesar's Palace.
Yeah,
could
so
be.
I am
sure.
assuming
New Vegas.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I'm assuming that the people working there had these Roman soldier costumes on, and they thought that these were the real soldiers that they led. They do a similar thing with the king. So there's a leader of one faction in Vegas that is an Elvis impersonator, and they worship they worship him like a god because he's like the king. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so everybody,
he is the king.
Yeah. So it's funny to see how these
have mercy. Anyway,
it's funny to see how these people react to things in our world that knowledge wouldn't necessarily get passed down. So I like to see that. Going back to this current episode, Philly, the way it's designed and everything is very reminiscent of a lot of the civilizations you can find in the games. Like in Boston, they make Diamond City, which they make it out of the baseball stadium. And they turn that into a town, which looks very similar to Philly. And Megaton is another one in Fallout 3 that's built around an unexploded atomic bomb. And everything is made out of junk and just patched together. So you'll have like whole vehicles just stamped into the wall, you know, to create this safe haven. So that was a very intricate thing that they did with this town that I really enjoyed seeing. So it gave me all the gamer feels.
Charity's first impression, I love how game-ish it is, which I agree with. Town Philly looks exactly like what you would see in a video game. Mm-hmm. She said, well, I love that The Last of Us didn't feel like a game. It fits this show better. The music is on point. Agreed. Mm-hmm. The music is so good. And of course, the farmer is our Fear friend, Michael Abbott Jr.,
who plays Isaac on Fear the Walking Dead at the top of season 6. Sharon goes on to say, there's a town near me called Kaiser. I'm going to say it the way
it's Kaiser.
They're supposed to say Kaiser.
Right.
it was supposed to be Caesar, but they spelled it wrong on the charter. So it's Kaiser. So it's funny because in Hebrew, it's actually called Caesar. So again, variations on the same word, which are correct technically, biblically.
C-A-S-A-R is Caesar? Or
well, it's more Hebrew letter. So, but yes.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it would be Kaysar. Is it wrong though? Is it right? Doesn't really matter. You get the idea.
It is what it is now.
Yeah. So yeah, Michael Abbott, who plays I would say like Wastelander, I guess.
Yeah.
This could be all yours. Yeah. He does such a great job.
I love that whole interaction was so funny.
Let's be a family.
Oh my God.
It was so sad.
He's literally offering everything he has, which is absolutely nothing.
He's like, thank you for not shooting me.
I know.
That's real kind of you.
Yeah.
And how he doesn't want to be a burden. He's like, I think I'm dying. You wouldn't have to put up with me long. And
my God.
I love how it just keeps going though, too. She's walking away. Thanks. She goes, I won't be alive much longer. Oh, that's all right. And you think it's gonna end, and it just keeps going, and then he just like turns about face, quarter degree, and he's like with his pelvis up because he's wearing a diaper, and just walks on back into his rather lovely home. Admittedly, a little bit of fixing it. It's just right. And even like is probably an actual water filter, by the way. You could make a life for yourself. I don't think she should have rejected. Second marriage proposal in 2 episodes. And why not?
It could have worked out. It could have been great.
I bet several episodes from now, she's going to be thinking back on this and going, maybe I should have stayed. Maybe I could have stayed a little while, saved my dad, brought him back. We could have been a big family.
I don't know. You can't deny the way she was looking at that literal knight in shining armor that came and rescued her. She was like starry-eyed at Maximus when he came and swooped in.
I know. I just wanted to hold her hand and go, no, honey, no.
Oh, no.
Just no.
You don't even know him. Not like we do.
No.
It's like damaged goods in a sense. It's funny. Like the person with the most damaged goods is in a suit of armor that makes him invincible, essentially. That's scary, though, in a way, if you think about it.
Yeah.
What does a person like that do with that kind of power?
Well, I was going to mention, so when Maximus first gets the armor on, he does exactly what everybody does when they get the armor. They test out throwing things. They do little punches. They just test out the strength of it.
You're saying like a gamer.
Yeah, as a gamer. You kind of will do that because the first time you get power armor, you're like, oh, this is freaking sweet. And so that's exactly what he does. And he's not very good at it. As the ghoul says, you drive that thing like a shopping cart because he hasn't read the manual and he's not trained to use it properly. But, he's doing the best he can. And you have this false sense of invincibility in that thing. And he quickly learns you're absolutely not invincible in it. So
you think you would learn from the knight as well.
You would think so.
But he's young and he's like, oh, he just didn't know how to use it, or he just didn't trust it, or he didn't know he wasn't the right, or maybe it's like one of those spiritual things. Oh, he wasn't fit for it.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
Maybe he just thought the guy was a coward.
Enough.
Because why would you run away from a bear, which is it's known as a Yao Guai, by the way. It's an irradiated bear, obviously, as he calls it. And Yao Guai, I have a little tidbit of information. So the descendants of the people stuck in the Chinese internment camps in America, they named it the Yao Guai, and that means monster, if you didn't know.
You're saying the real Chinese, is it in real life or in the game?
In the game. In the game. So I know that there definitely were real internment camps for Chinese prisoners in America in real life, which is horrible. But in the Fallout universe, this Cold War situation went on for a lot longer, as we discussed in the last episode. So they had them for a while. So the descendants of those camp survivors named it the Yao Guai. So after all these animals started to mutate and they started taking on different attributes and things like that, it's a mutated black bear specifically. So but they call it a Yao Guai, and it's a monster. And yes, they are indeed very, very dangerous.
So, in the games.
Yeah.
And in, life, quote unquote.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I had a little bit of a personal panic attack when Maximus hopped into that suit and it closed around him.
Like a claustrophobia?
I am extremely claustrophobic. And so he got in there and I'm like, you don't know how to get out. What if you can't get out?
I kind of was thinking that myself too.
Because he didn't know what he was doing. What do you say? Suit, let me out. What if that doesn't work and you're just stuck in there?
What is it, Jarvis in there? from the Avengers movies. I had the same thought. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. What are you doing? But then I had another simultaneous thought. I'm like, well, if that idiot could use it.
Yeah.
if
But he
Michael
was
Rappaport
trained.
could use it.
Yeah, if Knight Titus, the real one, could do that, you know.
No matter how stupid he was still trained how to use it. He was still told step 1, step 2, step 3. Maximus has none of this.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like learning on the fly. He's just figuring it out. I mean, he has a lot of, as you can tell, the way he talks about the different pieces of the armor and like, what kind of lining did you put in that? And I have a note about the lining as well. But it's game stuff.
To help you move faster?
No, it's for damage and energy resistance, actually. That's what tempered lining is for, if you want to know. He's just kind of figuring it out as he goes. And isn't that what you do in the game? You're like, that looks awesome. I'm going to try it. I don't know what I'm doing. But
yeah, we are very reckless in video games. We're assuming that the game is meant to protect us.
Yeah.
Essentially. Like, oh yeah, just try it. Just do the things. Do the things. The rest will follow. You're going to beat the game, aren't you? Yeah, you're going to beat the...
Eventually.
You're so cute, you little gamer. Anyway, I wonder if they turn that on its head at some point. And they kind of did in this show. He climbs in the suit. He kicks a little rock and it just wrecks the whole, I don't know, planned community or ex-planned community.
Right.
Or like a section of this little building,
Which, by the way, once I heard the screams come out, I'm like, did he do that?
Did he
too. Just ruin somebody's life, essentially?
Oh, no.
I thought the same thing.
But then it turned out it wasn't. It was a complete misunderstanding. Why don't we wander here for a hot sec? But before we do, let's add some more things that Sharon was saying earlier. The lady in town is Patty, the daytime hooker from My Name is Earl. So this is what you were talking about before the show, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
She's Dale, that girl.
Yeah, Dale
Ma June. Yeah, Ma June is the daytime hooker from My Name is Earl. And she was a skank lady from Breaking Bad. The skank Spooge's wife.
Yeah,
because he kept calling her a skank.
Yeah.
And then she toppled the ATM on him. I think that was the whole thing.
That was that scene, yeah.
In Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, and she also says Rappaport was a nice surprise. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a nice surprise too.
Me too.
And it's so funny because you're watching the episode. He's making him clean the cod piece. I'm just going to call it a cod piece.
It is.
You're thinking to yourself, is this for real? He's like, he really wants him to clean the cod piece. And then really he's just screwing with him.
Yeah.
He's just screwing with him.
Being
he should have told him to lick it. Lick the cod piece. Just lick it clean.
Oh my gosh.
Not on him.
Well, it was pretty clear that this character was not going to last. So they needed to make sure we disliked them as much as possible.
Yeah.
It worked. It
definitely worked.
Check it out, Dip S.
It definitely worked.
Can't say it. Michael Rappaport, thanks so much. Can't say words on this podcast.
I do love Michael Rappaport, though. Have either of you watched Atypical?
No.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, yeah. That's a newer show. Right.
No.
Yeah,
it's done. Actually, it should go on.
Newer as in like not 10 years ago.
Newer as in within 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I mean. I've been meaning to watch it, though. It's one of those many Netflix shows. It's Netflix, right?
Yeah.
That I've been meaning to watch. I just never get around to it. But Rappaport's, he's been in basically everything.
Oh my gosh. He's like a more well-known that guy.
Yeah. He's slightly above that guy's status.
Yeah.
He's a household name. See, we know his name. That's beyond that guy or
exactly.
that girl. Let's be fair. Let's be egalitarian, please. Thank you. Okay, so she says the thing I can't say, the chicken effer, right? This is what we were just wandering into.
John Daly.
Maximus kicks the rock in his power suit. This whole demolished complex goes even more demolished. Screams come out and we're like, oh, did he just kill somebody and ruin their lives?
Someone.
I did think that also. When I first saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, he messed up.
And maybe that goes to one of the special attributes, luck. He just so happened to be lucky enough to not kill someone.
Maybe. I mean,
in his gamer suit. And then, of course, you wander into the situation. Of course, he's trying to be the hero, which I just want to talk about that for a minute, because for all the talk about being spiritual and the brotherhood and the purpose of the brotherhood, which I'm sure he's acquainted with, he still can't help himself from being a hero, which is not the goal technically of the brotherhood in a sense. Your goal is to find pre-war technology, which Rappaport, I'm going to call him that, Titus from earlier says, they have us in our nights, you know what they're sending out there for? A toaster. Yeah. You know what a toaster does? He doesn't say what a toaster does. I think he's actually asking what a toaster does.
Anyway. He probably doesn't have any clue what that's for.
What's bread?
Yeah. No bread. Yeah.
So to his point, to Titus's point, wait a minute. Maybe the clerics, which we found out their title, I think, or maybe they said it in the last episode, I don't know. But clerics, they're full of S.
Yeah.
So then there's a competing interest here. As much of a believer as Maximus says he is, he's still playing hero, which is not really the Brotherhood's job. he's still playing hero when he tries to save Lucy. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm a hero. Yeah. And Lucy's like, yeah, you're a hero. And I'm like, okay, there's two delusional people doing things right now. All right. So I just want to know what you guys think. I want to start with Rachel. Did you notice that there's, for a person who is somewhat devout, a knight is supposed to better the world, etc., but using their mission, which we learned about from Karina in the last episode, mostly. Did you notice that?
Yeah, no, I 100% noticed that. It's more of a personal mission for him. He's not doing it on behalf of an organization. I don't feel like he's doing it for himself to make himself look good. And it's proven because he walks into this situation between these two men. And it's so funny. I just had a conversation with somebody, and I can't even remember who it was now, about stepping into a fight between two people. You don't know what side to take because you don't know what the altercation is about. This scene proves exactly that. He walks in, he sees a guy beating up another guy, and immediately grabs that guy.
Assumes he's the aggressor.
Which comes up later.
Yes.
She has a very rational approach to this, where he's just like, oh, I see something happening and I'm going to stop him. Come to find out, that guy, John Daly, needed his bootay kicked because he's ill.
Because gross. Yeah.
What do you mean, maybe? There's no maybe.
Here's why I say maybe. Because in relative terms, listen, we're nice and comfortable. We have our morality behind our TV screens, right?
No.
Okay, let's just be honest. But we say this about the Walking Dead universe as well. Maybe not to the extent of chicken effery, but in relative terms to the universe, everybody's doing something. And maybe chicken effery.
Not to the chickens.
Maybe chicken effery is the least of it.
Chicken effery is going to get your butt kicked.
I agree.
Something worse might get you killed.
I wouldn't stop it, but here's what I'm saying.
But
Michael Abbott Jr.
Chickens.
Michael Abbott Jr.'s character, whom I don't know what his name is in the show, he says something to the effect of, like, first of all, every one of his family that seems to wander into Philly dies. Essentially, his dad, his brothers, even had an aunt that died in Philly, not around Philly.
Once she died
once. Which maybe that's a little Easter egg. Maybe he's not that dumb. He just sounds dumb. We're judging him. And we shouldn't. Anyway, I guess my point is, I'm like what Lucy and Maximus should have been. I should just wait and watch to see what this world is really like before I start stepping in and judging and also apprehending people like some sort of huge metal cop. So sorry, I had to chime in because I feel like we watch enough TV shows to feel like we're morally superior, but maybe the show's going to show us that. What do you know? First of all, like Lucy, we think of vault dwellers.
Yeah. No, we have the convenience of judging these people from our couches and our chairs. Yeah. So yes, we have that luxury, but we also have the full
clip
scope
is going to be called
of what's going on.
In defense of chicken effery.
Oh my God.
No one is defending that, but
no
you.
one here.
A chicken effery apologist.
David, are you a chicken effer? Are you effing the chickens?
No.
I cosplay
David.
Michael Abbott Jr.'s character.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
No,
with the cloth diaper.
Big diaper, but also chicken effer. But
so,
anyway, right.
Okay. I see what you see in Maximus. I think he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's just not. Karina, what did you call his character type? Like a neutral?
It's kind of a neutral play type where you have your own personal goals and you're not necessarily going to go too far out of your way to help people or harm them. But being that he has that power armor on, he probably felt like, oh, this is an easy win for me. I could be a hero for once. I can help somebody. And he just happened to take the wrong side,
right.
Because he didn't have the context of why this fight was happening. On. He just saw some guy getting his ass kicked.
That description makes a lot of sense. I do see Maximus kind of out for himself right now.
Yeah. You see how he kind of glamorizes or idolizes this ideal of being a Brotherhood knight. I'm undecided on whether or not he truly believes in their mission or if it's just that he was so enamored at such a young age of this hero-like figure that came in and rescued him in this armor. And it's sort of his ultimate goal to get that. And now he sort of has the armor without having to go through all the hoops that you would have to jump through in the Brotherhood to get it. And he's like, well, now I'm going to be a hero. And then kind of quickly learns, like, this is harder than it looks. Yeah. Just even operating this thing is difficult. And let alone fighting somebody who's a skilled killer, like the ghoul, is not going his way. Just because he's got this giant suit of armor on doesn't mean, like I said, he's not invincible. So he learns that.
Do you think his interaction with the Knight Titus has swayed how he feels about the Brotherhood?
I don't know if he feels that way about the Brotherhood just from that. I think maybe his entire experience, because, he was sort of like the bottom of the totem pole back at the recruitment camp or that aspirant camp. His idea of it before he got into it may have changed over time, or maybe he thought, once I become a squire or a knight, things will be different. And now he's starting to see, like, gosh, the terribleness goes all the way to the top, or at least all the way to the knights. So I don't know, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I'm not sure. He's not very expressive about the way he feels about the Brotherhood. I don't think he ever really talks about how he feels about that. His actions going forward, as you can see, he does try to be heroic sometimes if he thinks he has the upper hand, or if he really wants what he wants. Like, his goal is to get the target, right? So, and he sees an obstacle in the way of the target, so he's going to try to take out the ghoul to do it. And at the same time, he's trying to save Lucy. Like, he does very valiantly jump her out of the way, when she's about to get shot. So that was heroic. And maybe he wouldn't have done that if he didn't have power armor. He might have let her die.
Although, to be fair, when he was told to go for the Yagwai or the Rad Bear, he does do it.
Yeah.
He does move ahead. But also, to your point, he does it in service of a goal.
Yeah.
Essentially. Like, oh, this gets me closer to, which is kind of what Titus baits him on. He's like, listen, you want to get somewhere, you want to do this is how you do it.
Yeah. Acts of bravery.
Acts of bravery, right. Which is an easy goad. But I think on the other side of that token, having had the experience of having his ass handed to him, in a sense, Maximus, nay Titus, now, I don't know what to call him, Titus Maximus, seeing his ass get handed to him, fine. But maybe seeing, welcome Sharon D to the chat, just like somebody that's young, who Maximus technically is. I mean, he's not that old. I think when you test your ideals and your hot-blooded youth, and you realize that maybe the elders or the clerics or whomever were right all along, you kind of fall back to your beliefs and go, okay, well, what's what I know? So I don't know if he does that moving forward. I can't speak to that, but I can say that even with the power armor, even with invincibility, quote unquote, experience has taught him a different lesson. An experience with somebody who doesn't have, who's walking out in the open with no real armor, although the ghoul does have a sense in his own way of invincibility and knows what to do, and not in spite of it, but he still knows his limitations, but exploits his lack of not being able to be killed as easily. And oddly enough, for a character that is chaotic evil in a sense, or I don't know, unlawful good, let's say, well, we can even call it that. We don't know what he is. It's just interesting to see that he, in a sense, is more balanced than our other characters who, to Sharon D's point, you said it in the chat, Lucy and Maximus are both very world is black and white types. And then they quickly find out that that's, I don't think Maximus thinks the world is black and white, though. I think he has like an ideal, but he has that experience of it not being black and white.
He sees the hero or the villain. Like, there's no in between for him. That's what I was getting at.
And that makes sense. Okay. And kids are like that too, though, right? Young people, they see the world in black and white, I think,
because
too.
They don't have the experience.
I think in my personal experience, yes.
The Cooper Howard character, the ghoul, I don't think he cares. It's all gray, and it's just a matter of what's going to give me the most benefit. And to what end? That's what my thing about him. And it's fascinating. What is his motivation in life? To exist? And to exist to what end? To exist in spite of living? Just to say, F you, I'm not going to die. And here's why. And I'm just going to live to cause chaos and have fun. So I just want to know what that is. I really want to know what that is. So we don't know yet.
He's like Peeves the poltergeist. Like, he's just there to stir it up and cause trouble and enjoy doing it. Harry Potter. Karina, I was about to get mad at you watching this episode. And then I was like, she said the dog wasn't going to die.
Yeah, I was very concerned because that's exactly what happens in the game. Dogmeat will run out and attack your enemy and pin them to the ground and supposedly give you time to kill them. But if you're otherwise occupied, Dogmeat dies every time. So
Dogmeat becomes Dogmeat.
It's horrifying. Oh, did you guys notice the Dogmeat vendor at the beginning of Philly? Yes.
I did.
I missed it.
Yeah.
It'll be showing up on the screen, actually.
Yeah, there's a Dogmeat vendor.
Nice.
The guy who tries to sell her iguana, which iguana on a stick is a common thing that you can get as sustenance. He's also yelling, he's like, dog meat, over and over. Like, he's selling
I did hear
dog meat. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same vendor, but I did see the
somebody
dog meat
is.
sign.
Yeah.
Is it bad that I would eat iguana?
No.
Is it bad that I eat dog meat? Sounds way more enticing.
Native Americans ate dog meat.
Yeah, fried lizard.
Quite often. That was a normal staple for them.
I have a question for y'all coming from a gaming standpoint. So early in the episode, CX-404 for short, attacks a rad roach and saves Lucy from it.
Yeah.
This giant irradiated. That's what rad before anything means, by the way. It's just short for irradiated. So rad roach, rad stag, rad whatever.
Rad bear.
Rad bear. Rad roach meat is a common thing that you can use to sustain yourselves. Would you ever see yourself in a position where you would eat something like rad roach to survive?
I feel like the people living on the surface would be fine, but as a vault dweller, you wouldn't have that built up in your system. I feel like
Tolerance?
I feel like you would have a really bad reaction to it.
Here's my justification for why it probably wouldn't be terrible, because everybody thinks like, well, you would eat a roach. That's disgusting. Me living now, no, obviously, I'm not going to do that. And yes, take into context the survival thing, you wouldn't be above eating a bug. But here's my thought. Roaches and lobsters are actually very similar in the animal world, like how they're classified. So they're actually very closely related. So they often refer to lobsters as like the roaches of the sea. And lobster is freaking amazing. So I feel like grilled red roach might be kind of good. You never know. So that's my gamer perspective on it.
There's a lot of cultures that eat bugs as delicacy and like snacks, and like if you prepare it the right
grasshopper
way.
in some places in the US if you want it.
You can get like fried ants and
it's just protein.
Sure, roaches. Yeah.
If you're like a surface dweller and you've been eating nothing but iguana and irradiated rat and rad roaches, then what's the difference?
And that's on a good day.
When you asked that question, the fact that it was a roach didn't even cross my mind. I thought you were specifically asking about the radiation. Oh, no. I'm like, yeah, of course I'd eat a roach. Yeah.
Just like on the last episode, it's what's on the inside that counts.
Right.
I was more worried about that.
Radiation is one of those things that's so unavoidable that in the games, at least, that you just deal with it. You're going to get a degree of radiation poisoning you, and that's represented by a section of your health bar that you can't heal, which brings me to the stim pack thing. So stim packs, the reason the dog survived at all is because he had him with the stim pack, and stim packs can heal in the game anything, including blasted off limbs and stab wounds and all kinds of stuff. The only thing it can't heal is radiation damage. So you can stim pack yourself as healthy as you can be minus your radiation damage. You need something else for that. Yeah, radiation is so common. You're just going to be walking around with some degree of radiation, which Lucy scans the raider at the beginning, or her fake husband or whatever, and she sees that he's very irradiated, and that's very common for anyone who lives on the surface. So
yeah, I scanned him too.
I think she has a type.
Mitch needed a stim pack with him. Maybe he wouldn't have died out in the desert. I mean, that limb thing did not look very comfortable.
Oh gosh, yeah, not at all.
Jim's limbs.
Jim's limbs.
Okay, wait. So yes, let's do that because so when it's chewing his leg up to kind of secure itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as if watching how it was blasted off wasn't bad enough. Right. Him waving it around in pain earlier.
Yeah.
Having that thing crunching his bone and chewing it up and just securing itself. And then also there's a crank that continually turns to kind of tighten itself up. It looks like a can opener, but it's really to screw something in. But then like watching the blood pour out like a fire hydrant, not a fire hose.
You're truly horrific.
That was peak. So, because it was almost comical.
Violence-wise, the show reminds me of Boys. It's just over the top blood and gore, but it's funny. It's not show blood. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of on that line where you're like, okay, it's seen a certain way. It is just kind of, and maybe it's just us. We come from a world where we're slightly desensitized to this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine how other people are looking at this. Like, oh wait. So other people looking at this will be like, oh, this is real. This is we're in the real world now, the surface dweller world. Yeah. So we're getting introduced to it in a rather violent way. But what I wanted to get to was, I don't doubt the fact that the chicken effer didn't have the kinds of serum that they needed, right? The chicken effer. He's like, serum to grow your foot back. Serums for pain for
trying everything.
Darn it. But maybe to what you're saying, Karita, is that, are you saying that Stimpaks can regrow limbs?
Okay, so video game logic. In Fallout, you can get certain areas of your body more severely injured. So say you take a lot of fall damage because you're like, oh, I'm going to jump down there, and it was a little too far. You can get a crippled limb from doing that, and you can inject a Stimpak directly into that limb to heal that damage specifically. Instead of doing a general into your torso or whatever, and it goes through your whole body, you can put it on a specific limb and heal that. It's kind of like that video game fix-all for everything. Some games make you do some very specific things to heal specific wounds, but Fallout's not like that. So you just use a Stimpak to heal it, which is why Lucy's able to get stabbed in the first episode and use a Stimpak and be fine, and why the dog can get stabbed with this gigantic knife and not be totally dead right away. It just kind of fixes it all. I don't think that they overuse it in the show, which is nice. But yes, in the game, if he got his foot blown off, you could have hit it with the Stimpak and you'd be fine. But not obviously in the show, they're not using that kind of thing.
It would regrow or just sort of like heal off?
It's sort of, yeah, it just sort of heal over. Yeah, okay. I think it's one of those things like in the game to keep you in the game for longer and not having to worry about that kind of stuff. Okay. You're not obviously going to lose your arm, but it's going to be crippled. Think of Aaron in The Walking Dead when his arm got crushed by the log. In Fallout, you could stick that with a Stimpak and it would be fine again. Like it didn't come off, but it was obviously not useful anymore. So that kind of injury is what you get in the game, and the Stimpak can fix it. So does it regrow the limb? I don't know. I don't feel like you take that kind of damage, because if you do, you're probably dead. So you just have to reload a previous save and go back.
Is that going to be in the show too?
Reloading a save's coming? No, probably not. I will say that all those explosive deaths, it makes me laugh because I feel like the ghoul has taken a perk called Bloody Mess. As you level up, you can pick different perks and things that you can do. So sometimes you'll get like Lady Killer if you're playing as a male character, and you can have more successful persuasion against women characters and stuff like that.
Charisma.
The Riz. You can also take one called Bloody Mess, which I don't like because it just makes everybody explode for whatever reason. Like you shoot them in the leg with a bullet and all of a sudden their head blows up. Makes no sense. But that kind of brings me to that sort of like it's done in a comical way, because Fallout, and my friend pointed out, that Fallout never takes itself super seriously. It's got serious moments and it can have serious storylines, but it's never that serious. It's always got some thread of comedy running through it a little bit. So to take a perk like Bloody Mess, where you punch somebody out with a melee attack and their arms fly off or something, and it's like, it's kind of stupid, right? So
it's hilarious.
It reminds me of that a little bit. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he took that perk because everybody he shoots just absolutely explodes.
Yeah, it's like, unless it's a dog, it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless it's a dog. No, I was laughing my butt off until the dog attacked. And then I'm like, no.
Kill all the people you want, but don't hurt the dog.
Yeah.
And the show responds to that. To me, it's just so ridiculous. Okay, so first of all, we can kill a rad scorpion. We don't care about rad scorpions.
Exactly.
But the moment's a dog. And the show takes note of that by cutting away. And all you hear is in the background.
It's horrible.
We also didn't see the Rad Roach's backstory and like how he was hidden in a wall.
I'm just gonna say, like, I'm all for the gray areas and stuff.
Good point.
But people who throw puppies in incinerators are just evil. There is no black and white there.
Do you remember how I told you the Enclave was horrible? Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
I was a little shocked by that. But first of all, even the appearance of these newborn puppies is a little unsettling, to quote Bridget, probably, who's not here with us, unfortunately. And then the very next thing that happens when you see this unsettling picture of a newborn puppy is it's being thrown into an incinerator. So wait a minute, we can do that, but we can't show an adult dog being stabbed. It's just there's just something. So I think it's also in the same vein of Fallout, a little ridiculous. I'm not complaining, really. I'm just musing. I'm just sitting here and musing.
I'm never for the killing of any kind of an animal. But at the same time, I feel like there would still be a better use than just incinerating them.
It's all a matter of perspectives, because there's clearly a eugenics bent.
Do any of you eat chicken or eggs? Because I can tell you what they do in the hatcheries and you wouldn't like it at all.
Well, I don't know if everybody knows, but they...
Okay, but that kind of goes to the point I'm trying to make. They don't just incinerate.
No.
We eat the chicken.
No.
They're
In
just burning the dog up.
Male baby chickens, they just throw them in incinerators or in compactors. Because
why? See, I would eat that.
Right, because males can't lay eggs.
It's not the way the world works, Rachel.
My ex-husband worked in a hatchery.
Seems like a waste of meat.
Roosters don't put as much weight on as the females, so if females are more valuable.
Oh, bring them to me. I'll fatten them up.
Well, they also increase competition and it has a problem with the yields. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So
the point I was making is I feel like it's a waste. Like, even if the puppies are a little small, they could have used them for something else.
But then again, okay, if you're thinking clinically, if you're looking for a specific kind of specimen, and you're
also thinking limited resources.
Oh, okay.
There's also evidence of genetic engineering when it comes to these dogs as well. So they're looking for something when it comes to these dogs, a minimum amount of this. From the blackboard, which I would like to show you, actually. I did take a picture of that. There's a couple things going on with Dr. Wilzig's blackboard. All right, so
methodical behaviorism.
So methodological behavior, stimulus / response is aberrant.
I can't read.
It's to be fair, it's not that easy to read. So a lot of this is all about behavioral engineering. Behavior, even if there is no reinforcement or negative consequences, it actually decreases behavior. So if you introduce a reinforcer, negative reinforcement is removed, increases behavior. Positive stimulus received also increases behavior. So he's going through his own testing of how to achieve the desired response. Right, exactly. And maybe this is as opposed to what everybody else is doing to make these obedient dogs. Because you can see that his dog isn't catching up quite as quickly. Is it CX404?
Yes, CX404.
Yeah, or 4 for short. He's not quite catching up, but he's using his own method. He's using positive reinforcement to increase his behavior, as evidenced by the treadmill, and how he's using the teddy bear, which you mentioned in the last episode, to do that. He's finding what it is.
That was the part that made me think of Karina. Teddy bear.
He talks about Darwin's tree of life and considerations of genetic engineering as it relates to adaptation and proximate mechanics of behavior. So he's also saying what would happen if we introduce genetic engineering to increase adaptability. It could be that he did do that with his dog and didn't do it with the other dogs. Maybe this group doesn't do genetic engineering. Maybe they're just trying to find the perfect specimen. Naturally.
Every dog is the perfect specimen. I'm sorry.
Oh, that is not true.
It is true.
No, it's not true.
It is true.
It's very much true.
What I will say is they're perfect for you. That makes sense. They're your perfect little specimen. They're just objectively not perfect.
I'm not hearing a difference.
Every dog is perfect.
Well, they are a truth of some kind. On the other side of the board, there are various equations, but in particular, I'm going to actually take this off now because you're not going to be able to see it from here. The left side of the board is about behavior engineering and how you can tweak things to get the response you want. Essentially, the other side of the blackboard deals with Maxwell's laws. Maxwell's laws is all about magnetic and electrical fields, essentially, but with the slight tweak of combining them with nuclear fusion. So there's something going on here. I don't know if we're mixing these two things or we're dealing with two different things. And maybe that relates to what he injects into his neck soon after the scene, where he puts dog meat in his bed and he gets caught because he's out of it. He just injected himself with we don't know what, but it's obviously a thing that Moldaver needs, essentially. And so maybe it has something to do with electrical engineering, current, voltage, magnetic fields, electrical fields. Who knows? But whatever it is the future.
You're on the right path in thinking that. That's something we certainly revisit. And it doesn't seem like it has anything to do with the dog. I think the dog is like a pet project,
separate.
Sort of. Yeah, I think he just...
It's a pet project.
Pet project, yeah. I think he just sort of felt terrible about having to kill these creatures just because they didn't weigh enough at the beginning. Or maybe he wanted to purposefully do, like you said, his own experiments, because I didn't even consider that at first. I was thinking of it in terms of what I would be doing if I was a scientist and be like, I can't stand to live with myself letting all these dogs just get incinerated because they're just underweight. They could be awesome, but you're not giving them even the chance right out of the womb. But yeah, maybe he did take that dog specifically to see, do my experiments work better than whatever we're doing in the dog training
just
area?
As good without all the throwing out the rest of the dogs, right? Which technically his dog didn't fit the bill.
Or maybe he was lonely and he wanted a friend.
Yeah.
Because it looks like that's not the nicest place to be. And personally, I couldn't work with dogs every day and not want one. I would want one to love and be my companion.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
But you're not part of a larger group, because what it seems to appear, at least as a theme across all these characters, even Benjamin Linus, even Dr. Wilzig, is that all of these people are a part of a collective. Let's just say, we'll say some are cults, some are this, and maybe to a large degree, all of these people are cults. The Enclave, the Brotherhood of Steel, even the Vault Dwellers, which Ma June calls Lucy out on. Mm-hmm. She says, well, it may be a take from a different perspective of how one is seen, because when we see the Vault Dwellers, we're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Wouldn't it be nice? And she says, wouldn't it be nice to have all your 10 fingers and toes? Well, that's good for you. But she says, Ma June says, it was a bunch of rich people who built themselves a fallout shelter or something to ride out this storm. How nice for you. Not everybody was so lucky. And so that is like a different take on that. But all of these people were engineered and designed to do things a certain way. And then we see all of these people one by one stray from that path. Maximus, Lucy.
You can't take away your human
Wilzig.
desire for contact and love and companionship. That's just humanity. That's why Wilzig wanted a dog, and why Lucy go out in the world, and why Maximus wants to be the hero, because they're humans and you can't engineer or force them into this path because it's not human. That's not humanity for them.
Well, that's why we watch stories too. We watch for I guess what Wilzig says on the board, aberrant behavior. They're the outliers when it comes to this world. Mm. Even the surface dwellers, to a certain extent, expect a certain behavior. They don't expect people to do good for other people. They don't say hi to each other on the street. They kind of keep to themselves, except when they want something. Mm-hmm. You want a lizard tail? Yeah. And then she goes, no, thanks. Then he just turns away. Second she asks about her dad, it's like, no, thanks. Okay, no, on to the next customer. Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't concern me.
I'm just noting that these people are the outliers. They're not normal. They're outside of what is, to us, would be, to your point, Charity, the norm. To be human, to be an individual, to flout expectation, essentially. We're all meant to flout expectation, even though sometimes we retaliate against each other for going outside the norm, too. It's an interesting thing to play with in this kind of environment.
Just because the norm is not necessarily what humanity would do. We think it's the norm for us to go sit in a cubicle for 12 hours a day and look at blank walls while we talk on the phone. But that's not what humans were made to do.
I agree.
Gold is a precious metal. What is the basis for that? We made that. That's an assigned value. Mm-hmm. So the norm is just an assigned value. What is normal? We don't know, because we're forced to live in this other thing that's normal. But for us humans, it's not.
And normal for some isn't normal for others, too. We're discovering these days, I guess. So, that's why I love this podcast, is because, well, we have different perspectives. We see things a different way. And so what would happen if we just didn't beat each over the head with what our thoughts were? And what if we just let it in for a little while and see if that jives, or if we can see things a different way? So to that extent, stacking together the idea of stim packs, the ability to heal from everything, to, I don't know, even looking at the ghoul, to live forever. But then looking at the plan D in this episode, which is essentially cyanide. Mm-hmm. And I love how Lucy stumbles upon an Econo-Saver bottle of plan D. It's like, it's a Vault-Tec product. It's a family pack. Mm-hmm. And Wilzig says later on in the episode, he says it's one of the most humane products that Vault-Tec has ever invented. And he has a tiny bottle of his own. What I like about stacking these two things together, the ability to heal from anything, basically, the ability to live forever, and the ability to die instantly. And it makes me think of things that some people have said about the desire to want to live in the Walking Dead universe, let's say, and people like my wife who would say, Plan D, please, Plan D, immediately. As soon as zombies start existing as a thing, and we can confirm that, Plan D all the way. I just started thinking of that. I started thinking of the conversation that Lucy has with Ma June. I think about who would want to live in a world like that? Why would anybody continue going? And you have the ability to, with the stim packs and everything. So why wouldn't you Plan D
because
yourself?
I like life. I want to know what happens next. Same reason I watch TV. Same reason I do anything. I want to know what happens
just in
next.
case.
Maybe that's Cooper Howard's answer. Maybe that's why he's lived so long. He wants to see what happens next. Was it worth it?
You have to have a degree of hope in that situation. You think about the people who came after the bombs fell. That is their whole life. They don't know anything different. So they wouldn't have the same kind of like visceral, like, I'm going to nope out immediately, because that's just the world they were born into. So they don't know any differently.
And then come the vault dwellers. Yeah. And then come the enclave. One seemingly has lived below ground. One seemingly has lived above ground, it seems like, with the railway and everything. So you have this negative of each other, and yet they're in the same position. They lived in a bubble. Mm-hmm. So when they see something like Plan D, first of all, they can't understand it. They haven't lived it. On the other hand, they see what it is like on the surface world. So maybe to Wilzig's point, why wouldn't somebody like a vault dweller or an enclave person be like, yeah, I get Plan D. I totally get it.
So you notice too, like, okay, so where she finds the Plan D is in a destroyed home, which is a very common type of place that you'll find in the games. And it looks very similar. The earth is sort of filling in it and like taking it back over. And any corpses that you find are skeletal. They've been around, you got to think they've been around probably for 200 years. If they didn't die in the blast, they took Plan D or whatever else happened to them. They've been gone a long time. And so you see like these houses sort of in a state of not preservation, but the time just stopped right then and there. You see all their little cups and tea implements on the shelf still. It hasn't even moved an inch since the bombs fell, which is incredible, by the way, that they all stayed on the shelf after a nuclear blast. It's kind of a callback to just a very normal thing that you would see in the game. They do a really good job in the games of environmental storytelling. It might be comical, it might be sad, it might be anything in between, where they just do this environmental storytelling, which is exactly what she came into. She's seeing for the first time that dark side of the Vault-Tec that she doesn't even know exists, because her experience has been that Vault-Tec is great and they're going to rebuild America and they have this very altruistic goal in mind. And she's seeing a hint that maybe they're not what she thinks they are. Well,
even as she's saying it to Ma June, we're going to build, she's saying it.
Yeah.
We're going to rebuild America. I don't think what I'm saying doesn't sound like it's real now anymore. She's probably said it 1,000 times before, but now it's just like, we're going to rebuild America.
You can almost tell in that moment she's starting to question if she believes it at that point. Why should all these other people care about what the Vault is trying to do?
In the Vault, they have no concept of rebuilding America because they're in this tiny little space. Yes, they have this computerized vista or whatever, but they have no idea what rebuilding America would mean. It's just something that's been mantraized over 200 years. And now she's come out and she sees that, oh my God, America's really big. Rebuilding America is not going to be we can just come out and recolonize. Well, we've been lied to. This whole thing that we've been told is untrue and not possible. Her life philosophy is just getting shattered in front of her. So she's actually staying remarkably upbeat.
Her positivity is unkillable.
It's like what we said about the Walking Dead World Beyond kids, though, too. They were safe behind walls for the past 10 years, so they were allowed to keep their humanity. That's, to Ma June's point, she says it's a privilege and lucky you. But I could see a world in which I would want to listen to somebody who's allowed to keep their humanity because maybe we could do things a different way. Lucky them, but maybe lucky us as well. I don't know. I keep thinking about that because even though you see her faith shaken and Wilzig says to her, you have to adapt or die, essentially, earlier on in the episode. And then he says it again when he sees her in town. There's a moment where you see the ghoul go all ham on everybody after being offered the 1,000 bottle cap reward from Ma June. And there's a moment she has in the store where she's looking up and down at all the various weapons she could pick up to fight against the ghoul. It just gets worse and worse as she goes up. There's a rifle, and then there's this big turret-y thing. It could shoot grenades or something. Who knows what it is? What does she walk out with in the end? At the end of the day.
Her syringer. Yeah.
Exactly. Why?
Non-lethal.
It's what she knows.
Yeah.
And yet she could have adapted, just like Wilzig says, she could have chosen any deadly weapon.
I know, that's what I was laughing about. One very small drop in a very big bag of drugs.
After what? After she gives him like a proper, like, okay, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
It was so sweet.
Just from my observations, we can de-escalate the situation. She chooses her ideals instead of violence.
It's so funny to me that her persuasion check just falls so flat because he's just, the way he's looking at her through the whole thing is just like, what is this? Like,
But in a way, does it fall flat though?
I mean,
I wonder.
He was going to shoot her. He definitely was going to shoot her.
But she did get his attention for a minute. She did get his attention for just a second.
She did distract him. Yeah, she paused the whole thing. Like,
I mean, but she said that all really for herself.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. She did that for herself. She says, you know what? I could adapt to this world and be the thing that I don't recognize, which Wilzig warns about. And it makes my goals change or shift because of who I become. But she chose the syringer. She says those words. She chooses her ideals and her altruism in the end. Because I don't want this world to take away the privilege. It's one thing to have that privilege all this time and then waste it. It's another thing to take that privilege and say, listen, I can't change who I am. So I'm just going to be who I am. If I'm going to purport to live by the ideals, this promise that I was set out to be, I'll have a responsibility to keep that promise. Again, we come from this world, the Walking Dead universe, and we see people change. We see the sheriff go rogue. Me? And we see him do all sorts of things. And Rick's awful. And sometimes he's not the ideal that we purport him to be all the time. And maybe not most of the time. Who knows? This goes to the larger point. We see people change when faced with adversity. When you take people they love away from them, literally her father away from her, killing the people that she loves. And she still makes the choice so far, second episode, we don't know, to stay on this path. It's worth mentioning and worth keeping an eye on too. And then taking that and transporting that to other people. How does Maximus deal with adversity? How does the ghoul even change? He heals the dog in the end, the thing that was trying to kill him earlier.
Yep.
So what does that mean?
Well, from a bad guy point of view, this dog belonged to Wilzig. He's going to want to get back to him. So now he can use the dog to track him.
Yeah, I think you're very correct in like him being very tactical about it, but you can also tell when he's looking at the dog, you can see it on his face. He feels bad that the dog is injured.
Whatever face he has left.
Yeah. He has this almost remorse about having to do that. In the moment, if a dog is attacking you and it's like, I don't care how I feel about dogs, I'm going to do what I have to do to save myself. And that's what he did.
Yeah.
But did he want to kill the dog? No, he didn't go out of his way to do it. He did it when the dog was attacking him.
And he could have killed the dog. He could have done a lot more damage, but really he just got him like in the side.
Mm-hmm. So the dog had a high luck factor too.
is the big bad and
the
ghoul is kind of the good guy because he has,
briefing.
He saved a dog. And he obviously, I remember when he was back in the before time, he loved his horse. So he's obviously, he's an animal person that didn't change just because he died or whatever he is.
Became a ghoul, got melted.
Didn't change because he decided to live in spite of himself.
Maybe he needed a companion too. Maybe he's lonely.
Yeah, and talking about those character archetypes that I mentioned before, where I'm saying the ghoul is an evil playthrough, not necessarily to say that the ghoul or that character is evil, but he's comfortable making choices that appear evil to other people or to do things that get him what he needs. He took on a whole town full of people that could take him out to find this one. He made a big spectacle of it. He's the one who started the spectacle. He called out, he's like, all 6 agencies came through for this guy right here. And he didn't have to do that. He could have been very secretive about it, but he decided to make a spectacle of it. And for whatever purpose.
Step right up.
Yeah.
Enjoy the show.
Who wants to have a shot?
And everybody starts walking away.
Yeah, they're like, oh, nope, I'm out, because they know what's happening.
He doesn't have a nose. I'm out of here.
Right. And then, Maximus being that neutral or true to the player character in most games, doing what you need to do to get what you want. You can make exceptions for people that are truly awful, like Knight Titus was just a terrible person. And he was like, you know what? I'm not going to give you the stim pack. And arguably that is an evil choice. So, he kind of walks both sides of it. And not just, like I said, the evil character isn't always evil 100% of the time. He's not doing it because he wants to be evil. He's just doing it because he's comfortable making those decisions to serve his purpose, where Lucy, of course, doesn't want to do that. She could have chosen to pick up any of those weapons, as Dave said. She could have picked up the rifle or any of those more deadlier things, but she tried to talk him down first, and then she used her syringer like a non-lethal thing, not knowing that it wasn't going to do anything, but,
like Sharon D said, it's a tiny, tiny drop in an ocean of drugs.
A large bucket of drugs. Yeah.
With his teeth.
They resurrected John Dory and brought him back for this. It's the
evil John Dory.
Pet Cemetery John Dory.
No, we know who it is. It's Dom Dory, his twin brother.
Fear the Walking Dead brings dead people back all the time. So, I mean, why not?
Oh.
Is this what this is? A Fear the Walking Dead sequel extension?
If Fear the Walking Dead chose completely different writers and use a different backstory, sure.
I will say, though, that in Fear, I'm just going to interject this. Once that bomb dropped in Fear, I was like, this is very Fallout-like. I was thinking as I was watching, I'm like,
I am 100% sure that the writers of Fear,
at
at least one of them was a Fallout fan. At least one.
Had to have been, yeah.
Yeah, except it wasn't as funny.
Yeah.
After the
there was
bomb
definitely
dropped.
way more
It was
serious.
really terrifying. Yeah. And it wasn't 219 years later.
No.
To where things could be livable, maybe. I will say one thing, though. In the Ghouls' Mayhem, of which there was much, and it was very entertaining to watch, admittedly. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan or anything, but it was fun to watch. I don't know if you guys noticed, and this is, again, Karina's in my head now. There's an argument to be made that the rounds that he's using are mini nukes, because they are shaped like nukes. Like in the classical
boom bullets.
In the classical Doctor Strangelove level, they're cylindrical. In a sense.
Yeah. It's still flat on the one
they have
end,
a little
though.
penis
It looks
tip
more like a bullet.
It's the kind that drops from airplanes, right? From bombers.
The way they would go behind the bullet and stuff. That stuff was great.
To the point where you can read the embossed boom on the back of the bullet, which must get stamped by his gun. But I see the way they explode on impact. I don't know.
Couple points. So them exploding, yes, partially what I mentioned before, possibly he's taken that bloody mess perk, and so everybody just explodes anyway. Actually, the weapon that he uses is called a hand cannon. So it uses a very large caliber round. It's not a mini nuke. A mini nuke will literally produce a mushroom cloud when you use it. The entire city would be gone. Like that's how big the level of a mini nuke. And we can
what
maybe
if it was
put
a micro nuke?
A micro nuke. It's a nuke. You never know.
What if it was a nano nuke?
A nano nuke.
Just saying.
So he's using a hand cannon, and then the zooming in on the bullet is directly out of the games. So when you score a critical hit on an enemy, your camera will go from your weapon. It will follow the projectile all the way to the target until it reaches that target and kills that character.
Cool.
So that is directly from the games. So that is something that can happen. Yep, I love it.
I salute you,
and I do like the addition that you can see the little inscription on the back of the gun. I actually had to look up, because it's one of the things I didn't know, was what kind of gun is he using, because it wasn't familiar to me, but it is in the universe.
In the game, do you also see almost an X-ray of the target as it's hitting? Because I played a game that did that, and now I'm wondering if it was the same game.
They haven't shown it in the series, and I don't know if they'll maybe do it in season 2, or if they're going to leave it out. But your Pip-Boy, your personal information processor that Lucy wears, you can use a system
called... That's what
called...
PIP stands for.
Yeah, personal information processor. You can use a system called VATS.
Oh, VATS?
Vault-Tec Assisted Targeting System. So you can use that to select a specific target or a specific area on the target. If you want to get a headshot, if you want to cripple somebody by shooting their legs, that type of thing. You have so many action points based on how much athleticism you have or what your agility is like. So you can choose to shoot 1 or 5 or however many shots into that specific area. So that might be what you're thinking of, is that sort of X-ray vision, because it zooms in on the character and the things that you're looking at are highlighted in green. It looks a little bit like an X-ray, and it'll kind of tell you what percentage you have to hit this thing, and then you can target that specifically. So it's useful. Okay. It's used throughout combat in the games, but it's not something you can just use all the time. They don't show it. They haven't showed her using it. It's possible that she doesn't know how to, or if that's an upgrade that she needs for her Pip-Boy. I don't know. In the series, they just haven't really gone into it at all.
Please remain calm sign on the turret robot as...
Thank you. I was going to bring that up before we got done today.
As Wilzig is leaving the Enclave.
And the worst shot ever.
I will say, for being the worst shot ever, it just seems like it was awfully close to hitting. So kudos to that department.
But it didn't.
But it did. Which is kind of interesting, because was it meant to take out one of its own? Which I'm just thinking, it did a really good job of not hitting Dr. Wilzig. So maybe that was intentional. Maybe it's just to scare him into not hitting. I don't know. But it was just awfully close.
Yeah.
To the point where you almost thought they did hit it. I don't know.
Maybe it was only meant to be a scare tactic and not fatal. Literally, things were exploding around their feet, but
it was cartoonish, right?
It was very, yes.
Do you remember like the cartoons where you'd shoot a machine gun at a character and it would just make an outline of the character, right? It was like that.
Felt like that, yeah.
Maybe that's what they were going for in a sense.
Maybe. That's kind of a weird disconnect I have. So there's some things that are deviating more from the games, because turrets, they'll tear you up in a game. I thought for sure he was dead as a doornail as soon as that turret popped up, because if you're that close to a turret in the game and it starts firing on you, there's no way you're going to survive it.
No, you're not meant to survive. It's like a barrier, essentially. Like you hit the barrier, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
Okay. I did have this thought that I kind of want to throw at everybody because of the whole magnetic fields conversation on the blackboard. Could have something to do with what's in his neck. True. But then I thought about the science behind the Pip-Boy itself, what powers it necessarily, what powers the suit. And it made me think that maybe some of it is at least partially powered by the magnetic energy or electrical energy in your own body. I don't know if this is anything, but I was just thinking, because it opens up a larger conversation too. Why does the Enclave have Pip-Boys? Why does Wilzig's character know so much specifically about Lucy MacLean, a name she never mentioned to Wilzig? So I had this thought of a couple of things. One, they have Pip-Boys. The Vault Dwellers have Pip-Boys. How do they even work? What is it powered by? What electricity? Does it have to be recharged? I don't see any charger. Does it run off the electricity in your body? Second, and more importantly, it seems as though the Enclave, at the very least, has been monitoring the vaults. I had this thought in the first episode as well. It would make perfect sense. They would know about the Telasonic projector, the 3D projector. He knew specifically that it was geared to show the Nebraskan countryside or farm. He knew about her name specifically, but it seemed like he knew a lot about the vaults.
Mm-hmm.
Much like the dogs, this is another pet project that they've been monitoring for a very long time. And I was thinking backup plan, maybe, or maybe they were engineered or took over the engineering of these people or of these communities for their own purposes. Kind of goes to the question I had in the first episode. What does that mean for the Vault Dwellers, for the Enclave? If there's nobody's friends, maybe, maybe not. I don't know yet, but maybe that they were their own science project.
My first initial thought was, oh, we'll find out eventually. So I didn't
pretty much.
So I didn't try to come up with my own theories very hard, because this was a huge nugget of information that was dropped. So obviously they're going to have to tie this up.
And they keep dropping it too.
Yeah.
It's like if seeing the Pip-Boys wasn't bad enough, then getting real personal with the information.
I think it's pretty obvious the Enclave is providing stuff for the Vault Dwellers. I don't know why. I guess I'm just dumb. I didn't even think about having to like charge the Pip-Boys. I'm just like, yeah, of course it works. Why wouldn't it work?
Like, sure.
TV logic. Yeah.
Right?
Because if it stopped working, that's when we should be worried.
But yeah, obviously it's an electronic device and it needs power. But like how? I don't know.
So I had a bigger thought. Actually, it's a thought that I thought like, stupid. All right, now we're thinking about. But from the first episode, you see a Nuka-Cola machine in the vaults. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, okay, I can explain this away. I didn't care about it at all until I watched the second episode. And there is an aerial shot of a Nuka-Cola factory right before we go back to Titus from when we see Lucy, I think it is. And you think nothing of it. Fine.
I noted it.
It's very prevalent. Yeah. I fell asleep at that point. I'm kidding. I fell asleep later. But then I think, like, so wait, how are they making this? Their primary crop is corn. And we all know that high fructose corn syrup is an ingredient in cola. Maybe. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're all American. It's sugar. I don't know. But then I thought to myself, there's the bottling, there's recycling of the Nuka-Cola bottles. So they could take care of it, sure. And then the bottle caps are used as currency in the top side. There's just something about that is a little odd. Like, it's one thing if you have like, okay, we're making synthetic meat, maybe. I didn't see any. Did you see any livestock in the vaults? I don't remember there being any.
I don't think there is, no.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so there's that. But then you said something, Rachel, that like maybe they're providing for them.
Maybe it's a symbiotic relationship between the Vault Dwellers and the Enclave.
It's like, yeah, you wonder how you survived for so long?
Mm-hmm.
It's entirely possible that they've been cosplaying as vault survivors. I don't know.
Wait,
because
like putting people in there? I feel like in Vault 33, if a new person showed up, you would notice.
No. I'm not saying putting people in there, but you can make just like a lab rat. You can make generations survive. If you just give them a little nudge, you provide a pellet every now and again.
Yeah.
where does all of it come from? I didn't see any meat, but there was meat on the plates, or at least some sort of QB meat. It could be cram.
It's cram, yeah.
Yeah, it could be cram, which they found.
That kind of makes you wonder what happened with Vault 32.
Right.
Like, because the Raiders got in there. So obviously, if they are watching, they're not watching very closely.
Or you guys said something very interesting in the last episode, which was, okay, look at this door. You have to use a hydraulic gun to seal and unseal this door. Well, what if we just opened it, nobody noticed, and Moldaver came in? And what if we introduced a stimuli to this one control group? What would happen? You have to introduce certain stimuli to a certain group of your little experiments. If this is one experiment, you have to do a double blind. What if the Enclave made that happen?
I hope they weren't hoping the Vault Dwellers to be able to defend themselves, because that backfired. In 32 it backfired.
Right,
anyway.
That's what I mean.
33 was able to defend themselves.
Yeah, they just about made it out alive.
Kinda.
And for probably even being less prepared than 32, they held their own. I mean, they're in the middle of a wedding, not thinking anything of it. So
they did pretty good.
Maybe caught more off guard, you mean?
Way more off guard than 32. Yeah. 32 must have had some alerts.
We don't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Certainly not a wedding, but maybe something similar. I don't know. I'm just thinking to myself, with all the alarms that go off if you cross certain thresholds or something like that. We're just spitballing now. We're just spitballing. We're just throwing things out there. It's worth dwelling on. And Karina's like, he doesn't know anything. He's off. He doesn't know any. I know all the things.
I would like to say, I don't know everything, but I have watched the series, so I know what happens. It is interesting to hear both of y'all, or all of y'all, talk about your theories on things, because some of it is close and some of it is like a close adjacent. And I'm like,
I'm talking to Michael Satrazemis right now.
Right. I can't say anything.
Sometimes you're right on the money. Other times you're like, well, I wish I would have thought of that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be spoilery.
On a generous day.
Having knowledge about what Vault-Tec is like in the games and all these other companies and in the Enclave and all these things. As it pertains to the current story and the current episode, we don't know. I like all of your theories. So I'll leave it at that.
Do we know if there's going to be a season 2 for sure?
Yes.
There is. Yes.
They announced it 4 or 5 days ago, actually.
Okay, yes,
cool.
Officially
Already.
season 2.
Wait a minute.
So
and that's
excited.
funny because they only released the episodes last Thursday, was it?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
So what was 5 days ago? Oh, okay. They announced season 2 the moment they dropped it. The first season.
And by the way, yes, the second one.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Which could go to what Karina was saying in the first episode, too. You call this number, it's a hint about something happening in 33 days or
33
something.
weeks, 33 weeks. Yeah. I'm going to find out in
season
like 32 weeks now.
It's more than half a year away. So we'll see. Okay. They did it again this episode. Majun says, everybody knows Moldaver. And I went again. I don't know Moldaver whatsoever. Can't do that twice. Is this going to be like a running gag? You're not going to know her at all until the end, and maybe a little bit. Be like, that's why everybody knows her. I'm an idiot. Listen, there's two things why I said what I said before, but about the Vault Dwellers being watched, being lab rats for the Enclave, maybe. So why does Moldaver want? Moldaver being of the Raiders, the one who got into the vaults, who wants Wilzig for some reason, who is of the Enclave. There's something there.
And Hank, for that reason. Hank plays into this plan too.
Oh, yeah. Right. Moldaver can go to Hank, meet Wilzig. He's part of the group that kept your group alive for so long, but treated you like science experiments. Anything's possible. But then again, Wilzig's ahead. How that looks like, I'm eager to see. This is a comical, farcical world. I'm thinking in my head, and I want to know what you think, Rachel, at least, if not Sharon, if you're still there. Are we going to deal with a talking head in the next episode?
A talking head. I mean, my gut instinct is to say no. I feel like that's going one step too far.
It'd be a little weird.
Is it though? We saw the ghoul pop out of a casket.
It's gonna be like Futurama, where they're in like a cylinder full of fluid.
It's Michael Emerson. I do want to see more of him. So that's my hope.
Yeah. I feel like maybe they'll remove the chip. They'll put the chip into something, and maybe we'll see a computerized version of him. I don't think his actual head is going to be talking.
That's interesting, because in one of the trailers, you do get to see Matt Berry himself in this wild yellow suit, if I'm not mistaken. And so we know that's the voice of Mr. Handy. It's just reprising what we said in the last episode. So simulation environment. What does that mean? Oh, that's interesting. It's interesting to think about. But again, it remains to be seen, right? It's just one of those things where like we can say a lot about even this episode and what the implications are from the things we saw, but we're going to have to see what's next.
Yeah. I'm excited for y'all to see as we go through these weeks and see other episodes. And I'm rewatching them too right before, so I have a clear, because I can never remember when one episode ends and another begins, because again, I thought this episode ended further down than it did, so I had to rewatch it.
Consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's all a blur. I liked the implications that they're suggesting in here, like, because when I was first watching it, I was like, oh, what does this mean? This is different. This doesn't make sense. And of course, we'll learn all of that later.
We'll tie them together. Okay.
Yeah, you'll get tied up nicely.
Well, I was pleased to see a couple of things that you had mentioned in the first episode, Karina, which was Ma June has a couple of bobbleheads, one on the shelf and one sitting near the window, I think it is. Lucy did not keep up with the tradition of patting it on the head like Hank did, but
she should have picked it up.
Exactly. She should have picked it up. I don't remember seeing an actual comic book in the first episode.
It was in the first episode. I think
it near the bobblehead?
Well, I think it was on one of the tables in her brother's room. I can't think of his name right now.
Norman.
In this episode, it was on the counter as she goes back to look at the logbook. Yeah, the ledger. Okay. It's blurry, but I can tell that it's supposed to be a comic book because of the way they look in the games. It's a little bit blurry because it's like really close in the foreground. So,
I see.
But yeah, it's there. And then of course the teddy bear is the dog's favorite toy. So.
And by the way, you do get to see Moldaver's name in the logbook before she closes it too.
Yes.
So I thought that was, it's interesting. Like, who are you trying to fool right now, miss? So, but I actually found that interaction between she and Lucy very, very cool. And also, I should mention some of the songs that appear in this episode as well. Among them, we actually get the ink spots twice this episode. One in the end credits.
Yeah.
I think it is in the beginning. The ink spots, into each life, some rain must fall. We've got Bing Crosby's Don't Fence Me In, just indicating the ultimate freedom that the West was supposed to be. But then in the 60s, which that's the thing about Bing Crosby in the late 50s, is that I know we're not in the 50s, or the whole idea of that song was supposed to be a response to, is it competition? I guess it's like keeping up with the Joneses. Much was expected of men because women were dealing with a situation of joining the workforce versus not joining the workforce. And as long as we're not joining the workforce, well, husband, you need to outdo our next door neighbors. And so you're dealing with a population whose men, who were the primary breadwinners, were trying to do as much as they could to outdo their neighbors. And so the Don't Fence Me In is a response to that. It's living in suburbia, and Lucy's wandering into a suburban community that's been demolished by the nukes, etc. And so you're seeing the aftermath of that. It's these men who are responding to, well, don't fence me in. I want to be a part of the cottonwood trees, and evoking images of being a cowboy on the range, letting the livestock feed off of the open grounds and stuff like that. And I just love seeing that juxtaposed against the literal, oh, you want the great unknown, the vast countryside? Well, here it is. It's a wasteland. So there's just something nice about that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that until thinking about the era of which this is trying to depict pre-apocalypse. And, oh, okay, well, here it is. It's kind of like what some people say, some fans say about the Walking Dead universe. I hate my job, and, I'm not getting paid enough, and rent is really high, and just bring the zombies, please. Can we bring the zombies, please? Well, okay, here it is.
Yeah. Do you really want that?
Not great. It's not great, is it? You want your ice cream. You want your ice box in your Atomic Queen oven. Oh, okay. No, you're not getting that. Anyway, another song is Betty Hutton's It's a Man, as Maximus is trying on a suit for the first time, which I thought was also interesting because it accurately reflects Maximus. It's the two sides. First of all, let me just tell you the words of the song because it's such an anachronism. There's a two-legged animal running about. If it smokes a great big cigar, it hangs out at a bar. If it tells the biggest lies, wears the loudest ties, Maximus with his power suit. It's a man. If it acts all like a cross patch, has his face with whiskers that scratch, as stubborn as can be, mean and ornery, it's a man. If it walks, if it talks, if its habits are a little bit peculiar, if it brags and tries to make you think it's wonderful, be on the lookout. Don't let it fool you. But then it goes into, but if it makes the moon up on high, more than just the light in the sky, if it kisses you and finds you like it too, grab it. It's a man. It's the duality of they can be awful and they can be wonderful. And that's Maximus in a nutshell. It's this clay we're molding in real time. What is this character going to be? Actually, what are all of these characters going to be? All of these characters are removed from their environment, removed from what they were used to, what they were indoctrinated to be. Wilzig is now removed from his body, his head.
Right.
Lucy from her community, Maximus from the Brotherhood, with the power to be whatever he wants to be, and still he struggles. And even the ghoul, who is now moving into this drama that we find ourselves in. What does the ghoul become? What does Cooper Howard effectively become? I'm curious to see that. That's what I like about the show, is that it's not just the ridiculous world with serious consequences. It's just these characters that we can all identify with as different pieces of us moving forward in the world.
I have to agree. And Cooper's removal from what he knows happened so long ago, and he's arguably the most acclimated because he's been around for all of it. And he's not having to learn anything new, where Lucy walks out and is aghast at a tumbleweed because she has no idea what that is.
Thank you for mentioning that, because it was like, what? She's like, what is that?
What? Like a
what
plant?
Is that?
Yeah, like, should I be scared of it? Yeah, she's like, doesn't know what to do about it. She's just sort of like starry-eyed about everything. And then Maximus, again, I can't say enough how your character would be in the game when you're going through like making decisions on the fly. Like, I'm going to be a hero in this moment, and in this moment I want this, and I'm going to do something kind of not great to do it, to get it, because I want it. And so he's kind of molding in real time, like, what kind of person is he going to be ultimately? So that is fun to watch. And I've noticed I dig into things a lot, and I see a lot of memes. I'm in a lot of Fallout groups already previous to this coming out, and people are talking about it online, of course. And a lot of people are saying they don't like Maximus. And I'm like, why? He's your character. Why do you only like it? Yeah, he's you. That's why you don't like
That's
it.
why.
Yeah, like, you don't like it because he's you. So
Maximus is you. Just a quote.
You like to think you're the ghoul, but you're not.
What was the show called? Something of elsewhere? Dispatches from Elsewhere. Again, I can't say hard enough how much I love that show.
You gotta binge it.
I guess it's just it can be intense though. But it's just that intro. Maximus is you. If your stats are mid, which is you. You're not the ghoul. You're not Lucy MacLean. You're not an altruistic figure. You're just you, Maximus. Titus Maximus.
Making dumb choices.
You make dumb choices every day. You eat store-bought sushi. Anyway, last but not least, right, the ink spots. I don't want to set the world on fire at the end, which I have to admit, the intro for both, well, actually for all of their songs, starts the same, essentially with the same motif. But yeah, I don't want to set the world on fire is the same as their song Maybe, which was was it in the first episode? I don't remember. But there's another song later on in the series, because I was looking at the OST, the original soundtrack for the whole series, essentially, just to see what was coming in terms of songs, which I don't think is a real spoiler when you really think about it. But yeah, they have another song. It's similar. We'll see each other again, or we'll meet each other again. Yeah. Which I happen to use as the end song for I use like a instrumental only version of that song for the end of our podcast, our audio podcast, because I think it's kind of cute.
Yeah.
We'll meet each other again in the next episode. So I think those songs are adorable. I happen to catch myself singing, I don't want to set the world on in my head a lot. Yeah. And so I'm just like humming along. I'm like a little cartoon character in my own home, just humming this song along. Folding laundry. I'm not folding laundry. Doing the dishes. Maybe I'm doing the dishes. Editing a podcast. Definitely.
And that song particularly has, at least for me, a lot of significance to the games because it's the opening for Fallout 3. So if you haven't seen it before, it's worth seeing it. Just go on YouTube and look for Fallout 3 opening sequence. And it starts with this song playing on the radio, and it slowly zooms out, and the song gets like quieter and quieter. And you see this destruction of Washington, D.C., and you see a Brotherhood of Steel person, like that callback that I mentioned in the last episode. It's from that. And so it's one of the most iconic things about the game is that song. So as soon as I hear it, I immediately think of Fallout. So I was glad to hear that too in there.
Yeah, it's the same as the end credits song they used in the first episode. It was so dead on. It was Crawl Out from the Fallout.
Yeah.
And I thought it was actually made for the game, but no, this song was made in 1960, I think it was. Yes.
That's crazy.
by Alan something or other. I can't remember the exact name. Now it's on the screen. And sorry, audio podcast listeners, you won't see it. But it was actually made, I guess, in response to the possibility of nuclear warfare back in the old Cold War.
Yeah.
It was, in its height, I would say. And I feel like the show, because we were talking a lot about, well, what if the Cold War culture had persisted for another 120 years, right? But I feel like the 80s kind of depicted that on a small scale. Once we reached the 80s, we had accepted that we would always have this conflict with Russia and this anti-Russian sentiment, but it was so chilled down. It was like, oh yeah, obviously Russia sucks, but what's on TV? Back to the Future is a movie now? Okay. So I feel like we got that taste, which is kind of the timing of the game release in 1997. At that point, we were how many years? 4 years after the Berlin Wall. Was it 89 or 93? I just can't remember exactly when the Berlin Wall fell, around that, somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s. And so we were finally seeing the tide turn in a sense. And so when the game got released, it was like, okay, we're still hot off that feeling of normalizing the Cold War. Okay, so what if it persisted for even longer? So I don't know. It's just interesting to see that, okay, we do know what that could be like. Well, what if it went on for even longer? What would that turn our culture into? What could we make money off of capitalistically?
How could we make money off of this fear and this constant threat,
What slang could we use as a result of it being on this long? I don't know. Will we even continue talking about it? That's a bigger question.
I have notes that I haven't got to mention, so I'll just go through them quickly. So in the beginning of the episode, you see a body go by on a gurney. It has a very obviously green arm.
And the fingers are kind of moving.
I'm fairly confident I know what that is from the games, although it is not ever discussed or called back to in the series. So I'm pretty sure that is a super mutant.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking as well.
So I mentioned that ghouls and mutants are different things, and they seem to be calling each other this as if they're the same thing. They're not interchangeable. Super mutants are people that have been evolved through the forced evolutionary virus, which is a man-made creation. They're trying to find a way to survive in this post-apocalyptic world, and they think the best way to do that is to force humans to evolve. It does not go the way they want it to. So I think that's what that was. Again, they don't mention it again in the series, so I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was a super mutant. The next thing is, I just saw it and noticed it. The guards in the Enclave are using laser rifles. Just thought I would mention that. One
of them is in the store, actually, too.
Yes.
Oh, well, not in the store per se. I would say it's on the signs on the store. Like if you don't, I think it was dealing with bottle caps or caps as currency.
There's a sign,
It shows a laser rifle.
Yes,
I don't know. I didn't know it was a laser rifle. But.
Something about you don't have caps and we shoot or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, yes, we did bring it up, but if you didn't know, bottle caps, Nuka-Cola caps specifically, are currency in Fallout. Pre-war money is useful only for fabric or whatever you're using it for. It's useless. They don't trade anything else. When Lucy goes out onto the beach and starts exploring, she comes across a robot buried in the sand. That's an assaultron.
An assaultron, okay.
She's very lucky that thing was not still active, because they're bad news. They will attack anything on sight. And
much like the turret.
Yeah.
By the way, I find that funny because Mr. Handy, as depicted in the show and also in the game, just looks way more threatening than that assaultron, essentially.
Yeah, and he's not even made for that. He's just an assistant.
Servant robot,
yeah. Like I said, a blowtorch and a buzzsaw, because you need that every day of your life.
I need to cut meat with a buzzsaw. Yeah, obviously, like a turkey, literally. Right? And then a blowtorch for the creme brulee.
Obviously. Yeah, and then CX-404 attacks just like dog meat does in the game. So CX-404 is a girl, will take a flying leap and attack and knock your opponent down and pin them like she does to the ghoul. That's exactly like dog meat. And as we said before, that's what gets dog meat killed. And it gives me stress.
Gives me agita. In some senses, though, Wilzig is a little afraid of 4. At least at first, he's very unexpected. And then later on, you kind of feel like he sort of has the same reaction to him a little later on for some reason. I can't remember why, but it's fine. I just feel like he didn't expect that maybe his experiment would work so well, that he would defend him so well. I don't know.
Probably didn't expect her to defend him that way, because I don't think that he was really training her to do that necessarily.
Right. Again, aberrant behavior.
Yeah.
Outside of what he thought was the norm, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah. The other thing has to do with Maximus and that scene with Night Titus. So when he jumps out of the vertibird and he has to hold on to the power armor and take him down to because he's like, I'm bored, let's go find something to shoot. So he uses this sort of like crane thing, I guess, that's designed with a cord attached to it. That's designed to drop the power armor, which makes sense in the universe. You know, how's your squire going to get down if you just jump out of it? But in the game, I kind of missed that they didn't do this. In wearing power armor, you're immune to fall damage. So you can literally leap from any height and not take any fall damage whatsoever, which it's so fun because you're in this giant suit of armor, you weigh a ton, you leap out of whatever, and you just come crashing to the ground and everything around you shakes. You might leave a crack in the ground. It's a fun thing. And I wish I would have seen that happen, but they don't do that in this. So
because he's obviously a squire and the squire's in tow and you have to consider the squire's safety is kind of what you're getting to, I think.
Yeah, it made sense for them to do it this way in the show. But even when Maximus had the armor on and he's like confronting the ghoul for the first time, he's like, I said, leave her alone, you know, and he gently floats down to the ground. I'm like, missed opportunity. You could have just jumped down like a badass. And then also in that scene when they're coming up on that cave where the bear is, it's really green around there. And I get, from a production standpoint, it's very expensive to CGI a wasteland through the whole thing. In Fallout 3 and 4, there's very little foliage. Now, I know that 76, because I've seen gameplay of that, it's quite a bit greener. There's a lot more foliage going on, a lot more plants surviving, but at least in my experiences of the game, nothing is ever that green. All of the trees are just leafless. They look dead. Everything looks like a charred waste. So
I did notice that in the scenes with Lucy at first, I did write this down, desolate. She's at the Santa Monica. You're at the beach. There's supposed to be water. And I noticed also that when she was walking towards the charred out suburban community, right? Mm-hmm. Did you have this sense of like scale problem in a sense? You thought, because when it was looking upon that community, I felt like it was a miniature. Just somebody put a miniature of stuff on the beach. My brain had a hard time visualizing the landscape essentially. And so I thought, oh wait, they created little miniature houses to put on the beach just to simulate the wasteland essentially. My point of this is washed out, hellscape, blah. But then when she gets to Philly, or outside of Philly, it was notably green. The skies were a little bit more vivid.
Yeah.
And I thought that was denoting, and this could be visual storytelling, it felt like it was denoting, okay, she's starting to get the hang of this. Her eyes are acclimating to the world. So we're seeing it through her visual landscape. She's adjusting to the colors because for all intents and purposes, this whole thing could be washed out. But for us, she's adjusting to the colors of this world, essentially. And she's seeing the greenery that's in the forest outside of Philly, let's say, to your point. Maybe to what you're responding to in terms of everything should be charred out and blackened and whatnot. Could be environmental limitations true. Yeah. They're just dealing with what they're dealing with. It could be a response to what Hank says in the first episode to Lucy and the hopeful Monty, right? Yeah. That maybe in 20 years, things will start to normalize. And maybe this is the first glimpses of a future in this world. Maybe as a response to that.
In the game, is the entire United States destroyed, or are there pockets where there were no bombs dropped?
No, everything is destroyed. So in the first episode, you see the amount of bombs that were dropped on LA.
Alone.
Yeah, it was like that across the entire country. So it's definitely suggested that everything is destroyed that way.
You could go live up in like Montana or something and it would still be relatively untouched because there's no cities to bomb there.
To my knowledge, it doesn't discuss that. So the areas mainly that you get to see in the games, at least the ones that I have played, are the Los Angeles area, the Vegas area, Washington, D.C., and Boston. And then I know 76 takes place in West Virginia, which is a lot more greener and less touched by. So it is possible. I'm going to say it's possible. There are areas that are relatively untouched by the nuclear fallout, but having that many bombs dropped anywhere, I think, would affect the entire.
So there could still be like areas with significant wilderness.
Yeah, I would say very possible. You just don't see them very often, at least in the games. Yeah, exactly. to piggyback off that interaction that they have where Knight Titus runs away from the Yao Guai. It's such a in-game thing.
Right, I've heard that. The F. No, F. That's you, basically,
booking it away. Yeah, essentially, because you come across an enemy that you can just tell you're not going to take him. Even in your invincible power armor, you're kind of done for. So you just run. You just make a run for it. So that made me laugh a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's very accurate to what I've done 100 times. An inaccurate thing would be Maximus being able to kill the Yao Guai with a single shot from a 10mm gun. Absolutely not. When the knight was asking him, shoot it, you know, and he was hesitating, I'm like, don't shoot it. All it's going to do is make it attack you. And
you're
going to
shoot a bear, a real bear, like in real life.
That's a handgun. I mean, a 10mm gun is like your bread and butter weapon, but it doesn't have the stopping power for bigger monsters like that. So you're going to have a bad time if you're trying to take one out with a 10mm. So the fact that he shot it and killed it in one shot suggests that that's an inaccuracy to the series versus the games, or that Yao Guai was severely injured. Titus would have been able to see that through his heads-up display in his power armor, and he still chose to run away, which makes him an absolute coward. Like, he could have taken that thing easily. So
I think he gave it the old college try.
Yeah, he did fist fight it a little bit.
Yeah. Let's just leave it like this. Titus, upon trying to fist fight him, the Yao Guai, discovered that no, can't do it. But he wore the Yao Guai down enough.
Wore him down. Yeah, he knocked down the health
or
bar
somebody
a little
did
bit.
It earlier. It
was nice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so even in that state, you couldn't take him down, by the way. But then, of course, you know, Maximus with the winning shot. Fine. Let's just call it that. Sure.
Let's call it a chicken molester.
Oh, that's a way better thing to say than chicken effer. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a little
more.
Could
just call him John Daly.
The chicken. Yes, it is John Daly, isn't it?
It's John Daly.
Amazing. Okay. The face makeup alone is just like, God, you look like a ghost, John Daly.
I don't want to like that character, but he has a charm about him, right? The way he talks and like, I just don't like the chicken part of it, but like.
It's the John Daly quality.
Yeah. He plays a-holes way good.
He does. He really does.
He's the ultimate a-hole.
You can take another perk called Wild Wasteland, which gives you increasingly more just wild stuff that will happen to you in the wasteland. So taking a Wild Wasteland perk might allow you to have an interaction like that. It might allow you to meet an alien. It might allow you to have all number of things happen to you that wouldn't normally happen if you didn't take that perk. So it just kind of reminded me of that. I'm like, wow, that's an interesting
interaction
thing that's happening that just randomly.
Who wouldn't take that perk now?
I always do. I always do because it's so fun. You never know what's going to happen. In the Maz Sundry's place, I forget what it's actually called.
Majune's, right.
Majune, yeah. She has a lot of interesting things in that store. Of course, we talked about the weapons, the bobbleheads, all that kind of stuff. The stim pack, she has a Pip-Boy in the front window.
The Big Boss cigarettes I saw next to the bobblehead.
When Lucy is having the interaction with her and she's sort of telling her off about how vault dwellers are delusional. There's a lunchbox in the background, and those are interesting because they appear mostly in Fallout Shelter, and they always contain a lot of really useful things. So lunchboxes are something you want. In Fallout 4, you can find lunchboxes too, and they always contain junk. And they just have nothing useful at all in there. So like you find a lunchbox. Right. Well, you find a lunchbox, and I always find it so comical because when you open it, it gives you like a little like a party favor that you blow into, and they're like,
a party favor.
A party favor, yeah. So it sounds like that, and a little confetti will pop out of it, and then like out falls a plastic fork, or like absolutely nothing useful. Like, so it's always like, hooray, nothing.
It's actually so ridiculous.
I know, it's great. The last thing is when he's like, take my head to Moldavis at the very end of the episode, and she ends up choosing to cut off his head. She uses a ripper, which is a melee weapon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a ripper. Yeah, it's a melee weapon. It's basically a handheld chainsaw. And it's useful if you're a melee kind of build. I don't like doing that because it means you get killed faster. But and the whole taking the head and taking it as part of your mission is one of those story threads that they pulled from New Vegas. So that happens a couple of times in New Vegas where you have to take someone's head and you can't let it get too messed up or they won't be able to tell that the person is the person. So I just thought that was interesting that
God, we're going to see that in the next episode. I hope not.
Maybe.
Wow. So. Which does remind me of The Walking Dead a little bit when they mess up the head to show that it's Rick Grimes, I think it was.
Yeah, like to pretend that it's him. Like if you mess it up enough, it looks enough like him that it could pass. Yeah.
And he goes, "You got him. Yeah, it's him. Yeah." It actually looks like one of the... Actually, by the way, it does sort of look... The head looks like Mick Grimes, the cosplayer. I don't know if you guys know about him. We're going to show a picture of him on the screen, and I'll show the side-by-side of the head. I won't do any of that, but if you've ever seen it, that's fine. Not to say that Mick Grimes is unattractive. I'm just saying he's just a cosplayer that has a resemblance to Rick Grimes. Sort of. Anyway.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, one last thing. I've been loving the end credits. The art is very kind of like in the Art Deco style of the late 50s as well. But in this episode, we didn't talk about it in the last episode, but which is obviously bombs go off and you zoom out and it's kind of like Santa Monica Pier. But this episode was an airfield. Specifically, I don't know, in relation to Horizon Airlines. Why use your travel dollars abroad is the billboard when you can fly locally, essentially. Very, I guess maybe xenophobic, let's say. Why use your... Don't let the commies have it, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, and one last thing. Speaking on that, where do Lucy and Wilzig stop off? But they stand in front of this.
Yeah, a crashed Russian satellite.
CCCP, a Soviet Russian satellite. Very. You see this for a hot sec as they transition into the scene, and they're under this very specifically. It's like a beacon. Calls to my attention about this because I know you guys mentioned the Chinese, but we're still on the Russian bent, and it's just you're seeing these artifacts from before, and what does this mean, right? Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna end up seeing, but I just love things like this. I love when things like this pop up in the show.
Is that the same one that crashed in outside of Alexandria?
On The Walking Dead? At the top of
we're
season 10.
We're tying these together.
Yeah.
We're determined to tie them together.
We're in the same universe. Fear the Walking Dead.
Oh my gosh.
This is way more cartoony. Obviously Soviet.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It looks a lot like an iBot, which are types of robots that you can find. The iBots look like Sputniks walking around. So it kind of reminds me of that. It has a callback to it. I don't think it's an iBot. It looks much bigger.
What if there's a dog in there?
Is there a cosm? Right.
Look, I'm an idiot. I'm like, is there?
There was a dog.
He's still in there. He's still scratching the window.
Oh, he's got to pee.
He took Plan D. I'm sorry. He took the easy way out.
Oh, David, no.
Well, he thought it was a bowl of water.
I was discussing with my
like
friend
bananas.
about the series because he's also a huge fan of it. He was like, I laughed so hard when he said it was banana flavored and I didn't know why it wasn't more popular.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I was appalled until he said it was banana flavored. And then I'm like, I get it.
Yeah, everything has this cartoony outline to it. Basically, Plan D. Most humane invention Vault-Tec invented. Which, he's a strange guy. Let's just be honest, too. Everything he has... Oh, you're not prepared. Oh, you should go home, my little experiment that we watched for 219 years. You should go home. I know you. Lucy MacLean.
I'm like, excuse me, what?
And then he dies. He just dies right there. He's just...
Yeah.
I'd be so
thanks,
mad.
Guy. Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Wake up.
And first of all, I thought he was going to say, oh, it's on your name tag. There's no name tag. I'm just saying that would have been funny. And yet he dies. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode. I had a lot of fun with this one. It was way less intense than the first one. Not that that's a bad thing, but let's have a little fun.
Don't take it too seriously.
This is fun.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, I am enjoying the game-ish aspects of it. It is very much like you're watching a video game. You can tell.
Well, I'm glad that you're enjoying it too, because I can easily see any one of us going, well, the stakes aren't high and it doesn't feel like real life. And it's like, sometimes I don't want real life.
Dennis has been watching this with me.
Exactly.
Okay. And I made sure to tell him from the beginning, I'm like, this is based on a video game. And he has not complained about anything.
So you set expectations.
But I appreciate the differences between the way they did this and the way they did The Last of Us. They took out the game aspects of it. You don't feel like you're watching a video game when you're watching that show. Whereas with this, you do. And I like it. It makes it fun.
Yeah. I would argue, too, that The Last of Us is a very different kind of game to Fallout because The Last of Us feels more like an interactive movie when you're playing it than it does a game in the sense that Fallout feels like a game. Different genres, of course. Obviously, I loved the Last of Us series, just to put my 2 cents in it. And they did a really good job of telling that story in a way that was accessible to people who are not going to play a game like that. sometimes those games are too intense, and The Last of Us is super serious and super depressing through the entire thing, and it's relentlessly bleak. Fallout's not like that. Fallout is fun. It could be relentlessly bleak, but they don't play it that way. They play into like how ridiculous some things can be, how cartoonish they can feel. And sometimes you just want that. Like you said, like it's nice to just have fun. Playing games is supposed to be fun. So as much as I love The Last of Us and that story, and I do have fun playing those games, it's a different kind of experience.
But isn't that everything, right?
It's fun like, to end a gaming session in tears. It's great. Yeah. It's so great.
This is why I like bringing in Z Nation too, occasionally, even though Z Nation isn't adapted from anything, but on the note of knowing what you're getting into or feeling what you're getting into, it's good to know that a series knows what it is. Whereas Z Nation was like, oh, we're taking ourselves seriously. Oh, we're ridiculous. Oh, okay, no, we're not ridiculous. Oh, no, now we're ridiculous again. That was the only flaw, in my opinion, with that show. It didn't know what it wanted to be. Even if you didn't know that Fallout was based on a video game, it knows what it wants to be. It almost as if it grounds its seriousness in its own ridiculousness.
Yeah.
It doesn't offend the watcher with it too. It almost lays down the ground rules like, okay, here's what you're getting into. It's pretty serious, but at the same time, we're just going to throw in a little levity every now and again, like with Barv. Like, Barv, come and see
what
this.
What kind of name is that? Barv.
I know, I wrote that down too in big capital letters. Barv. What is that short for? Barv?
Exactly.
Barfra? Or I don't know. I'm eating my beans, but okay.
Okay. I love Barb.
I don't really like a lot of violence, torturous violence, walking side, but
gratuitous.
This show, much like The Boys, make the violence so cartoonish and comic booky, I can deal with it. Again, it's not like The Walking Dead where people are screaming while their faces are getting ripped open and stuff. Watching people get their legs blown off, I wasn't like, no. I was like, ha ha ha, that's funny, you know? It's totally different. Totally different feeling.
It's exactly how it goes in the game too, so.
I was still like horrified, but at the same time, just it's everything that's happening while that's happening is just still ridiculous. Yeah. So you're like, then you can look at it and go, what is he doing?
Like the head's just exploding when they get hit. I can laugh at that, you know. Like The Boys, I can laugh at that too. That's funny, violent.
You're the ghoul. You're playing that character while you're. So it's,
hell yeah.
You can
we
get
know
into
what kind of play style you have.
Right. So again, it knows what it wants to be. It's not trying to be something that it's not, or it's not trying to tell you it is something that clearly it isn't. It's the same with The Last of Us. So it's why I bring in Z Nation, because that I had a problem with that. I was like, okay, what are you trying to be serious? Are you trying not to be serious? Then you're not being serious. All this to say is just be who you are. It's why I like both The Last of Us and Fallout, because they are what they are and they don't purport to be anything else. And they just commit to that. Yes, you do get moments of levity in The Last of Us, but it's grounded in its seriousness. It's a break, like the puns, like the Ellie puns, first of all. But in this, it's like, it's grounded in its ridiculousness. Okay, yes, there are serious moments, but then we bring you back down with just how cartoonish everybody looks and the gamification of everything without being too overt on the gaming stuff.
That could be why they haven't done VATS, because that would probably feel a little too video game-ish,
right?
A little too to the extremes. I would still like to see it in some form or fashion if they could find a nice way to do that without making it feel too outside of TV series.
Right, and introducing it in the same way as like the Syringe or anything else. Just, okay, it's a thing, who cares? And then we move on. Right? Yeah. You see one character going, okay, shot, done. Wait, what was that? No, we don't care. Same with Stimpaks.
Yeah, I would just have to hear the sound that VATS makes, and I can't possibly recreate it, but it's basically like a zoom in and a click or something. Like, and so if I had just heard that happening before, I would be satisfied.
Yeah, that's all you need.
See it,
So if you know, you know, and it doesn't take away from the thing you're watching. It can still be good. So just like this podcast, if you think this thing is good, head over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. 5 stars and a Stimpak is all we need to know that you love us. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. Remember to tell us after every episode. And if you really like what we're doing, we could use real life Stimpak, which is money. No, I'm kidding.
Money.
You can tip
us.
Not
caps.
No caps.
Yeah, we can use your caps. No, we can change that. We can change, instead of coffee, you can leave us a bottle cap.
Yeah.
Head over to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead and just tip us a couple bottle caps. If you like what you're seeing, we could definitely use it. You can also join a membership tier for as little as 1 bottle cap a month and enjoy a bunch of perks. Even the tipping allows you to join our Discord, by the way. So if you throw in something, you get way more back than what you just tipped us. For as little as $1 a month, you can get a whole bunch of other perks as well and join the fun in more channels than you would normally when you tip. But what we do like to emphasize is not doing any of that, even though we would very much appreciate it. It's really just following us for free on either Ko-fi or Patreon. That's patreon.com/squawkingdead, because you'll be alerted to our scheduled recordings, which you can join for free. Following is for free. So consider starting there and working your way up. We would like that, and I hope you enjoy what we're doing for you. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I was joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Burt, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Karina at Karina_D on Instagram. That's CARINAE_D on Instagram. And enjoy her artwork and her insights.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
And we're hitting the dusty trail. Wasn't that lovely? Thank you again for making it to yet another episode of Squawking Dead. We really, really appreciate you being here. And before we go on to thank our Survivors and Whispers tier members, those who support us in the mid to upper tiers on either Ko-fi or Patreon, which you mentioned just earlier, I wanted to make a few announcements. One is that you may have noticed that there was a lag between this episode and the last episode, and that is because I, your friend Dave Cameo, was on vacation. So that really screwed us up in terms of editing, but not as much with recording per se. So if you want to get these episodes way in advance, uncut, unrefined, the way nature intended, and then I come in and ruin it with my editing, consider supporting us on either Ko-fi or Patreon. You can tip us and get access to the unedited post recordings right away for 30 days, or you can join a membership tier for as little as $1 a month and get those unedited episode recordings or even interview recordings immediately after we stop recording. You may want to consider doing this moving forward, at least as far as Fallout is concerned, because we're still doing the catch-up. Episode 3 is already in the can, but it needs to be edited, and it probably won't be released for a little while. We're going to be recording episode 4 in a couple days, so you can probably sit in on that at the very least when you follow us for free on Ko-fi or Patreon, because again, it is free to attend these recording sessions. It is free to follow on top of all the other little updates that get released in between. And one more announcement that you're not going to hear on the next episode because it was already recorded. We have Squawking Fallout merch. Yeah, both a logo and 2 art designs. It's basically one art design with 2 different colorways. I highly recommend you checking that out by going to squawkingdead.com, click the menu in the top left and choose merch, and on to our Survivors and Whispers tier members, without whom these episodes would not be possible. Starting with the Survivors tier, we have at RealRyanGM on X and at ElizaJones71 on Instagram, or at JonesAJ6 on X. On to our Whispers tier members, we have at Judith.Morton on Instagram, Aiden Atkin, who you can reach at ko-fi.com/AidenAtkin. On Facebook, we have the following: at Sandy.D.Morrison, at Kim.Rowley, the number 1, and at Lois.Martin.54. And last but certainly not least, we have at IFoundThemRickG on X. Stay tuned because more Fallout will follow, and I really, really hope we can release these episodes closer together so we could finally catch up. If you're heading to the camp at the end of the month, which is just in a couple of weeks, we'll be there with a booth and our smiling faces to talk to you. We're at your disposal, and we're here to have fun. And keep June in your sights because it is going to be a crazy month of television episode releases, starting with The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon's 2nd season, The Book of Carol, and a whole lot of other television which we hope to be covering as well. All the more reason to help support us because we are going to be doing so much work behind the scenes to make these podcast episodes possible, and honestly, we really, really could use it. A lot of these episodes are going to be released with the help of an editor and myself, probably, and some of those expenses are going to be coming out of my pocket. This is the make or break moment, folks. If this goes well, we could be going somewhere, and I want you to be a part of that. So again, head over to either ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead and support us today. You never know where we could go with your help. But in the meantime, remember that we are Squawking Dead.